Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining a special podcast of Great Dynamics. We are continuing with our review on the Modern Warfare gaming series, and I would like to give the word to Marcel, who's gonna lead us, like all the other podcasts, into this interesting story. Let's say that.
Yeah. Let's say that. Michael's here as well. How you doing, Michael?
Killer. Witching hour over here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, what is it, like 6 a.m. in Seattle?
5:53. Yeah.
5:53. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, so we're concluding the Modern Warfare trilogy. There's been more Modern Warfare games, but they sort of rebooted it. This is the one that came out in 2011. I know you haven't played. Well, you played one Call of Duty game, Michael, but Ahmed, did you play Modern Warfare 3 at all when it came out? Do you even remember?
No, I played 1 and 2. I haven't played 3.
Modern Warfare 3. Yeah, I mean, the hype kind of died. I mean, it was still like, I mean, I'm saying that it broke a bunch of records for like pre-sales and sales and stuff like that. But in terms of like the excitement over Call of Duty as like a new kind of fresh thing, Modern Warfare 3 was sort of seen as like a point where it kind of peaked, like it was starting to stagnate a little bit. And I don't think it's a coincidence that after this they started going into like more future-y stuff to try and go in that direction. But like, I don't even think I owned this one. Like I was there as a teenager, like night of, like for Modern Warfare 2 as like a teenager. I was like, I was there at midnight getting the steel case version because, if you pre-ordered it, you'd get the nice steel case where it was really hard to get the DVD out of for some reason, like way harder than a plastic one. For Modern Warfare 3, I think I gameflied it. I don't even know if you guys had GameFly, but that was like, how Netflix used to be like DVDs, and Netflix would send you a DVD in the mail, and you can keep it for long as you want, and then you'd send it back. Yeah, so GameFly was that, but for like Xbox games.
Is that a US thing?
Yeah, I don't know if they brought it over. I don't know if they brought it from civilized America to uncultured Europe, but
I've never heard of it, so probably not.
Yeah, I mean, you could. It was actually pretty good. Like I think I would get like 2 discs, and like it was really good for like games, especially if you were like a teenager like me and you couldn't just buy every single game you wanted. You just get like 2 games running, and if it was like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, you could like take that risk without paying like $60. So I think that's how I played this one, because if you set it so that it was the only one you could get a game like on launch, so I got like Skyrim on launch that way and stuff like that. And then you didn't have to give it back, which I think was a big problem for them. I don't know if they're still around, but I don't know how well that financial model worked out for them. But yeah, so that's how I played. That's how I played it. Although, Michael, I heard you're playing the new Modern Warfare 2. How's that going?
I am. I've mostly played multiplayer to get weapons for Warzone, but Warzone is not the same as the first one, so I'm still getting used to it, but I don't think it matters as much what your loadout. I don't know if you played Warzone, but you can call in your loadout, and if you have a good loadout from regular multiplayer, you can bring it in. But the campaign I've barely touched, and what I have touched of it, like, and it was mostly just from doing this podcast. I was like, I'm gonna try a Call of Duty campaign. I haven't really played one, and oh my gosh, it was a lot. Visually, it's stunning.
I hear you kill Soleimani in this one.
I've only gotten to like when they go to Amsterdam, and it was like, I don't know, who's the guy with the crazy like Civil War mustache? Is it like Soap or whatever?
Price. Yeah. Captain Price. Yeah.
He's like in a canal in Amsterdam and like boonie cover, like all kitted out, and I was just in Amsterdam like a month ago, and I was thinking about how absurd it is. Like, even if you were, for some reason, in a canal in Amsterdam as an SAS guy, why would you be like, there isn't any part of the city where you can do that, and people aren't going to be like, oh wait, bruv, like, what are you doing? Like, put down the joint for a second and like peek around, like.
Yeah, I must be really high. I think I saw Captain Price down there.
You have to get in.
I have to defend my people here, right? Not everybody walks around with a joint in Amsterdam. If you remember, Michael, we met each other.
I'm mostly talking about the tourists.
We met each other like that,
I know,
a month ago. No, but
apart, yeah.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It is a thing with tourists, but you're 100% right. You would stick out like a sore thumb. On the other hand, people kind of like the weather. Like I have the game. I haven't played it yet, but when I saw the video of it on YouTube, I was like, if it's that kind of weather in Amsterdam, then definitely you cannot walk around like that. Also, like, for example, London, it's a city with cameras everywhere, right? There's cameras every corner. So it's not like you can just be like, I don't know. I don't like to use the word gray man because I think that's also silly. But
I mean, he's lucky he didn't get hit by like a bicycle or.
that was the one thing
that
that
would
was
be,
missing.
I think that would be the
That
real.
was the one thing that was missing. More bicycles because
Yeah.
they're everywhere.
So good.
Man. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into Modern Warfare 3 and get this. This is the one. This is the one that I think the other two, it was like nostalgia and they're fun enough games in and of themselves. This is the one where I didn't like. I just didn't like have as much fun with, really. I mean, in like 3 or 4 games, Call of Duty went from a nice franchise, from a niche franchise to like one of the top like selling games annually. And with Modern Warfare 3, like with Modern Warfare 2, they wanted to make Modern Warfare 2 bigger than Call of Duty 4. So they had to make Modern Warfare 3, even bigger, even louder, even more exciting than Modern Warfare 2. Which is like which is hard because in Modern Warfare 2 they like nuke the International Space Station and like blow up DC. And like, you stab people with like knives that you pulled from your chest and stuff like that. And at the same time you had other pressures. I don't know if you guys played like Uncharted, but that franchise was coming out around that time. Did you guys play those?
No, I only know it just came on Steam.
You should play Uncharted 4 is awesome.
I've never played it either.
It's like Indiana Jonesy, like especially Uncharted 2, which I think was coming out. Uncharted 2 and 3 were the ones coming out around here. It was like you're fighting on like a train that's dangling off like the side of a cliff and stuff like that. Like it's that sort of thing. So Call of Duty was like, trying to like match that level of intensity, and not only live up to like previous games, but like live up to like the broader zeitgeist of games at that time.
I feel like I wasn't really tracking gaming much during the period that Call of Duty kind of took off. And seeing what it is now with Modern Warfare and like the marketing where it's like, come buy Mountain Dew and you'll get like in-game items. Come buy like, for real, like Burger King had a deal. I actually was trying to I made a fake account in Mexico to try and do this on my burner phone where you can get, in Mexico, they have like a special deal where you like scan a QR code and you get like in-game stuff. And I was legit like making like a burner Mexican account and it didn't work. But I'm like, this is so wild, like the level of like cultural impact that this game has. And I'm wondering, is this around the time where it started turning into what it is now, which is beyond just a franchise? It's like, I don't even know how to explain it, like very capitalist, like infects all these other different areas of at least for American culture. Like,
2009, 2011, that's definitely where you started seeing like Mountain Dew, like Code Red branded like gamer stuff. I feel like, especially they tied it into experience. Like you'd have a double experience, token or whatever, and it would be on the side of your Mountain Dew because I guess they figured out that like, that's what all the 12-year-olds were drinking. This is definitely. I mean, there was other promotions before, and it's not like video games were like a niche revenue in the media market at that time. Games were still selling millions and millions of copies, but like I do think that like Call of Duty, I think before Fortnite, I think Call of Duty was really like the thing that was like leeching its way into like every single other aspect of entertainment in a very real way. There was an Onion article. I forgot to mention this. There's an Onion article you can still find. It's like 10 years old, the satire site. And it's like ultra realistic Modern Warfare 3, has you, sitting around for 12 hours smoking, digging latrines. Like the entire thing was that it was so realistic that you weren't actually doing anything fun as a military portrayal. They decided to go in the opposite direction though, because this is like, we'll get into this in a second, but this is some bullshit.
I mean, the period that you're talking about, Marcel, is for me is the period that that's when I started my professional career in intelligence. So I spent, I think around that time was the first time I was in a place where you were constantly on edge, and I couldn't even run a gaming computer. I couldn't even get one. let alone like run one because of the rolling power cuts. So it was. I think I had a lot of. I had Modern Warfare in real life on a daily basis. So it was not. Yeah. The only thing that I played was at the time that I could take with me was FIFA on the PSP.
Oh yeah. That
was the only thing.
Yeah, FIFA on the PSP. I had friends who were playing like Star Wars on the PSP. Yeah, that was fun. They don't have that anymore. I guess they just have the Switch now.
And I think also culturally, FIFA is huge in Europe, right, and in the Middle East, Asia, and South America.
I think it's consistently like one of the best selling.
I think what you guys is more like Madden.
Yeah, Madden. Yeah, I sports games. I don't really have a good optic, unlike for like Madden and stuff like that. Or for a while they were doing college football games. But yeah, like that was the biggest thing coming over to Europe. Is I was like everyone's playing FIFA all the time, and they're buying it annually and stuff like that. And that's sort of the success that I think Call of Duty was looking to emulate. Right, was getting people to buy it every single year, like a new car or like the FIFA games, because that was before you could really update rosters online and stuff.
It's like a carrot on the stick kind of model, because I'm a long time World of Warcraft player since like it came out in like 2004, and it's like they managed to convince people you should give us your money every month to play this game, and that model of like the psychology behind it, I see that now in Call of Duty. Actually, I was just thinking about this week. I was like, geez, I can unlock this gun if I do this. I can unlock, and I'm like, why do I even care? Like what? And I don't, but then I do, because it's like, having gold camo on your M4 makes you look like a cartel, like, kind of like that kind of guy. And,
like Saddam Hussein or something.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, like
a proper sicario.
Sensationalist. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, no, it's especially like the daily challenges, like the way that works, where they make you play. Like you got to play every day to get that extra. I sort of, I don't know. I think I'm lucky because I'm a little bit. I'm not immune to it by any stretch, but it's not something where I'm like jonesing for it if I miss like a week or so.
For sure.
Although for I don't know if you played Warzone, like the first Warzone, because this is Warzone like 2.0 or something. But in the first one, you had to play every day because otherwise it'd be a like 400 gigabyte update. Yeah. And you'd like get on to play with your friends, and you're like, oh sorry,
Yeah,
like I have to install 120 gigabytes. I'll be here in 2 hours.
Yeah, this one's half that, luckily. But,
yeah. So it was like 70, but yeah. All right, so let's get into this. Let's get into this Modern Warfare 3. Let's do what Call of Duty does and kill all the characters, which is spoiler, which is where we're heading. Right, so plot-wise, right, we need to cast our minds back. This game was made in 2011, but it's set in 2016. So cast your mind back to 2016. Closer by the Chainsmokers is charting. Doctor Strange just came out. Russia unilaterally invaded DC, and the US nuked them in response. We ringing bells here. We're in the right mindset.
Amazing.
That was a big time. It was a big time for me. I was just graduating, and then they just nuked DC. It was very bad for my job prospects. All right, so if we recall from the last game, right, Captain Price and Soap, they killed General Shepard and his mercenaries that appeared out of nowhere. And meanwhile, Makarov, who was the bad guy who wanted to stoke a confrontation between Russia and NATO through doing terrorist acts like shooting up the airport, he escapes because Captain Price and Soap, threw a knife into a U.S. general's eye. They're both now international criminals. That's something that's sort of floating in the background, and it explains why they're doing a lot of what they're doing. And then Russia has magically invaded the U.S. by surprise, and the U.S. has taken back Washington, D.C., but the invasion's not over yet. So this game starts, Call of Duty 4 to Modern Warfare, there's like a 5-year gap. This one starts just right after. So Soap is still suffering from having been stabbed in the chest. There's a short flashback thing where Price and Soap, they escape to northern India with their friend Nikolai, and he's getting medical treatment. So like put a pin in that. That's just a quick like cutscene with how it starts. And then we cut to some new characters who are Delta Force guys in the New York area. The Russians have invaded New York, and by New York I really just mean like Lower Manhattan, because they don't show the rest of New York, and we have no idea what's going on beyond that. But they're assigned to disable a Russian jamming tower that was stuck on top of the New York Stock Exchange. And because the jamming tower is there, the U.S. can't, airstrike Lower Manhattan, I guess, and mess up, Russia's landing there. Not going to go into the weeds of how like electronic warfare works, but I will say, like, if you know where it is, you don't need to use an airplane. You can use conventional artillery or a ballistic missile or something to level the static target, especially if the idea is that you're going to bomb the hell out of it anyway. But it's weird that the whole thing's like a single point of failure. So yeah, you're one of these Delta Force guys. You shoot up a bunch of Russians on your way to the stock exchange. And the entire time, like, your Delta guys keep forgetting what mission they're on. Like 3 to 5 times within 5 minutes, they're like, "Hey, where are our communications? Like, where's our air support?" And they're like, "Oh no, they're jammed." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's why we're blowing up the jamming tower." Like, this happens like 5 times just to remind you, like, this is a jamming tower. That's like the premise of the mission. So you shoot your way through the trading floor of the stock exchange, like the famous one from, like if you've seen financial movies or like Wall Street or anything like that. It's like that busy trading floor of the stock exchange. You have a big shootout there. You get to the roof and you blow up the antenna. In typical Call of Duty fashion, your command is like, yeah, we're going to send a helicopter to come get you, even though the area is like not safe at all. And they also give you a Predator drone, which I guess was just chilling above New York, just being jammed the entire time. No link to a ground control station. So anyways, I don't know about you guys, but like, I was not like New York has been blown up in so many like video games and movies and stuff that it had no impact on me at all. Like, I don't know if you guys have played like Spider-Man games or any of those, but those all take place in New York. So it's like it's very familiar to see like New York getting messed up, or like, even at this time, like some of the like infection based stuff, like things where you're like a superhero or there's some kind of massive infection. It's all in New York, like the Division and stuff like that. So wasn't really feeling that. Yeah. So you get on your Blackhawk. You have an action sequence that's really dumb. Your command tells you you're going to go, as the Delta Forces, you're going to go link up with Navy SEALs to go destroy the entire Russian fleet, which is all parked in New York Harbor. And they're parked like bumper to bumper. They're at dock, like just within sight of each other. I'm not entirely sure that's how naval operations work, but they're like right next to each other. You have some hijinks. You get this briefing that, after you blow up the jamming tower, the U.S. Air Force flew right over the entire Russian fleet. And by right over, I mean like 1,000 feet. Like, you can see them. Like, they're stealth fighters, but like if a Russian sailor was like looking up, they could like see them. So like the worst angle. And they just blew up half of New York. They dropped like 8 JDAMs on it, which is like, for a heavily populated area, that is a ton of explosives. And this apparently just the only Russians left are the ones on boats, right? So you have to go blow them up. The plan for you and the Navy SEALs is you're going to seize a Russian submarine, and then you're going to use the cruise missiles on the Russian submarine to blow up the entire Russian fleet, which again are all just sitting around in the harbor, like not doing anything, not shooting at airplanes that are flying right above them. This is where just hard cuts and you get into scuba gear, and you use a SEAL delivery vehicle. Did you write on SEAL delivery vehicles, like the submersibles, like that DevGuru used? It's like a portable, like, little submarine thing. It's like a man-portable submarine. Like, you hang on to the side of it and it goes.
I want to say it's in one of our pieces. Someone's probably touched on. I haven't personally. That sounds like something that would be in one of them. There's been a couple on different, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because it was like it's like they have like a whole SDV like team. Yeah, there's like SDV like whatever numerical unit kind of designator.
Yeah. So it's one of those, and it's like a science fiction-y. It's like a science fiction-y version of it. Like, it has a sonar. It's got like, it's got a lot of Call of Duty stuff, like bells and whistles added onto it. That if they were on the real thing, it's probably really classified or something. And so you basically roll up on this like Russian submarine that's just hanging out there, and you just plant some explosives on it. And the point of the explosives is not to blow your way into the submarine. What it does is it forces the submarine to surface. So you then go up to it. You then get on the submarine now that it's surfaced. The crew, for some reason, decides to like pop out with rifles because they know exactly what's happening. You use the fact that they open the door to jump inside. You like shoot up all the sensitive electronics, and you set the missiles to launch against the fleet. and then you jump out. You escape on some. So you've set the helicopter. You've set the submarine to launch all of its cruise missiles and destroy the entire Russian fleet. And so you guys just hop out of the submarine and you hop onto rigid inflatable boats. I think they're Zodiacs. And bing bang boom, mission over. America saved. The missiles, they somehow all hit the Russian fleet exactly where you want them to. And you've done it. You've saved New York. The start of the next mission shows that like all the Russian forces that landed along the East Coast, they're just like skedaddling. They're just like leaving, which is very funny considering how much they like invested into this secret surprise attack on the U.S. mainland. So you put a pin in that. You cut back to Captain Price, and his friend Nikolai, the Russian guy. They're treating Soap's injuries. He's still, believe it or not, it takes more than like 12 hours to get over a knife wound to the chest. I did not know this, but apparently it does. And Captain Price is like, I need your best man. And Nikolai's like, oh, you have to get Yuri. He's the only man who hates Makarov more than you. And like doesn't elaborate on why he might hate like Makarov, the big bad guy. And so for all of these, like you're playing as this new guy Yuri, who's just like this random Russian guy. Anyways, Makarov has found like the hiding spot that you and Price and Soap and Nikolai's guys are hiding in, which is apparently just in northern India. So he attacks it with like helicopters and drones and like hundreds of guys, even though the Indian military would probably like have some very severe issues with hundreds of. So you guys all need to escape this compound in India. So you drag a wounded Soap through the town with the help of a UGV actually, which is implied to be some kind of like 80s retro Soviet like unmanned ground vehicle, even though like no, nothing like this. Like there were like radio controlled drones that the Soviets had in the 80s, but they definitely didn't have like a minigun and like an automatic grenade launcher on it with unlimited minigun rounds, but only 20 grenades for some reason. I guess players kept using the grenades instead of the minigun or something, and the developers decided to give them unlimited bullets. Anyways, nothing else really happens here. You escape safely. Makarov is bad. We are good. Congratulations. People definitely don't get away in the next mission though. And this is one of those like big plot defining missions where now you're playing as a Russian FSO officer escorting the president of Russia. The Russian FSO is sort of like the Secret Service, like internal security guys. So you're escorting the Russian president as he flies to peace talks with the U.S. vice president in Hamburg, which is a little weird because like Hamburg is a NATO country and therefore it's not like neutral ground, and it's not like Switzerland, right? Like you're like the Russian president's flying into an enemy country. But anyways, you're sort of standing around and the president's like sitting down with his advisors and he's saying a bunch of like generic crap. Like, we need to seek peace and, we destroy our enemies when we make peace with them, which like, it's kind of late for that. Like you just invaded the mainland United States. Like were you not 100% committed to it when you like launched half your military there? It's just hard to portray like this guy is like a peacenik, right? Like right after he did this giant invasion. But fortunately for my like mental health, this conversation's like interrupted by a hijacking. So you as part of the bodyguard, you're getting the president to a safe area of the plane, but the whole thing like goes to hell. The pilots of the plane try and do an emergency landing, which like crashes the plane, and like the most spectacular, like the tail end of the plane like falls off the back, and like guys are getting pulled out of it and stuff like that. It's a wild action sequence. So you stagger around with the rest of the bodyguards in the wreckage, like trying to find the president. You get him and like like a rescue helicopter. You're apparently still in Russia, but like a rescue helicopter arrives. But guess what? The guy in the helicopter is Makarov, the big bad guy, and he just shoots you and the rest of the bodyguards, and then just takes the president hostage. And he's like, "You must give me the nuclear codes." And the president's like, "I won't do that." And then it cuts away. So I guess put a pin in that like there's a slight issue with who has access to nuclear weapons in Russia. So we're back with Price and Soap and Yuri again, and they're like, oh, we need to go to Sierra Leone because like someone told us that Makarov is smuggling some kind of package into Europe via West Africa, which is true for like drugs. Ahmed, I don't know if it's stuff other than drugs that takes that sort of Americas to West Africa to upwards into Europe route.
It's mainly drugs. I don't think weapons really go through that route. Yeah, it's mainly drugs and fake medication, perhaps, but they also come from China, so that would not be the easiest the easiest way to get in. So yeah, I think you're pretty spot on that. I don't think Sierra Leone is one of
Yeah.
the entry countries though.
Yeah, well, it's very clear from this mission that they don't really know a lot about Sierra Leone, because it's basically like the laziest like blood diamond portrayal of Africa. Like everything's like run down and on fire and rusted. There's like they traded out like the for most of the game you fight, if there's a dog in it in the franchise, it's a German Shepherd, and they just traded that out for like a generic model of like African wild dogs from like Animal Planet. It's just like there's like militia guys firing guns in the air and just like running around in like rusty technicals. It's just really lazy. Like I said, they did Sierra Leone dirty here. But nothing really happens in this mission. Like you run around looking for the package and you get to the helicopter where the package is, and oh no, it like left at the last minute. So there's a mystery about what's in this package and where it's going. The next mission kind of gets more into that. It starts with, and this is actually the only like intelligence part of the franchise so far that I was actually a little bit excited about, because what it has is it has French intelligence picking up like a cell phone conversation about the package heading to London, and then French intelligence shares it with MI6, and then MI6 shares it with MI5, and then MI5 calls the SAS to come like intercept these packages, but they don't know exactly where they are. So I guess they just dump it all on the SAS's lap, and they're like, we're an intelligence agency, but we're not like that smart. Like, you go find them.
This would be a great entrance for, and we wrote an article about that. We got a little bit of pushback on the increment or E Squadron, which is seconded to MI6. And well, they are basically the most like secretive of the SAS. And I think these guys would be the most logical, but I don't think they make any distinctions in this game.
Yeah. I think they're trying to toe the line between like cool stuff and cool stuff that you recognize. So they know people are aware of the SAS, but the more factual you get, the less badass it gets. So you play, so you're the SAS here, and you have this like massive giant gunfight in and around London, like the docks area. For some reason, it's only the SAS. You'd think they'd call maybe like the cops or something, because it's already in the UK. You could block off this whole area if you wanted to, but you have this like lengthy shootout. You're like, for some reason, there's a tube station that goes straight from this dock to Westminster. So you're in like the train, the underground train, the subway trains, and you're like shooting at each other from different trains, and like you're passing platforms with just like passengers in there, and you have to like not shoot them. It's pretty wild. But you ultimately get to Parliament, and there's still like a bunch of tourists there anyway. Like the cops are just holding them back, even though we have no idea what's in these packages. And you ultimately stop one truck like 15 feet from like the Parliament building, but there's still three others. And the way they show what's in these packages is they cut to like an American tourist family in London, like half a mile from Big Ben. Which, like, guys, there's a war in the U.S. Like, they're like, oh, yeah, it's day 3 of our vacation. I'm like, where'd you fly from? Because, like, New York and D.C. are, like, occupied. Maybe, yeah. But, maybe they're Canadians, and I was mistaken here. But anyways, one of the trucks pulls up next to you in the background and detonates. The explosion itself kills your entire family, including your young daughter. This is sort of... They were trying to replicate the Modern Warfare 2 controversy with the airport shooting, but it doesn't really work here because I already know that the terrorists are bad, and you could tell that it was just trying to shock you for the sake of shocking you. There wasn't really any like real value to it. But after the explosion, you see like as the camera fades out, you see like green gas. So the implication there is that this is like a chemical attack, like a CBRN attack. I don't know how many chemical weapons actually use generic like green smoke, and they never explain what gas it is. I guess they just like wrote it off. They tried to explain it at one point, and they decided it was too complicated, and they're like, you know what? People know what gas is. They've heard of World War I. So this is where it gets. This is where we get to like the main conflict here, which is that So Makarov did these chemical attacks, and it turns out he did them all over Europe. Like it shows like Paris, Berlin, Warsaw, all these places chemical attack. And then simultaneously the Russian military, which I guess is fine after like taking a big L, like trying to invade America, invades Europe. So there are chemical attacks in the cities that aren't very effective at stopping a European military, but the Russians invade at the same time, and they and like the Russian president wasn't there to order this invasion, and he seemed to be on like the peace train. So I don't know how they planned it this quickly, but nevertheless, you guys will be happy to know that like from Call of Duty 4, like the failure to understand the geography of the Middle East there and how fast militaries can move there, like also applies here to Europe. Like in the first few days, like Russia has simultaneously like gone from their border to like Berlin, Paris, and Hamburg, which is where the subsequent missions take place, which is why they're there. But it's just like that's fast, man. That's a really quick advance.
Well, we've seen that that's not very possible.
Yeah.
Maybe the same doctrine as the 3 days of taking over Ukraine.
Yeah. I mean, it would be like yeah. I mean, in a couple days it would be like three times farther, like getting from the Russian border to Kyiv, is like at least is what we're talking about here. So the deltas from New York, the ones who saved the day and blew up the entire Russian Navy, get sent to Hamburg, because the vice president of the U.S. was in Hamburg because that's where the Russian president was going. That's where they were going to have the big peace summit. So you fight through the city of Hamburg, which I've never been, but it looks like Hamburg, I guess. It's like a European city, wide streets. There's a series of action, set pieces that offend the rational mind, and you grab the vice president, who the Russians are like about to execute, which seems like a bad move. That seems like a valuable hostage, but whatever. Like they literally there's like a Russian sergeant with like a gun to the vice president's head, and it's like, do you have the authority to like to be executing this guy? But you shoot that guy, you grab the vice president. Mission accomplished. We did it. We got the like 8th most important person in the U.S. government, the vice president. Right. So put a pin in that. Then we go back to Price Soap and Yuri again, who after the failure at Sierra Leone, they decide to just like cold call the SAS headquarters, even though they're like all wanted criminals. And they're like, we want, all the intel about how Makarov got the chemical weapons. And the SAS is like, oh yeah, sure, we'll tell you. Like over this cell line that's pinging off, 3 towers in 800 different countries. Yeah, we'll tell you. Like their SAS's lead is that they point him to a Somali warlord in Bosaso in Somalia named Warabe. So that's where this mission happens. And they spell Bosaso, by the way. This is a side point, but they spell it like 2 different ways, which is so accurate, because if there's like a way that like Western military and intelligence people can spell like a non-Latin alphabet word 2 different ways, they will. Like, if there's 2 ways to spell Bosaso, if there's 3 ways to spell Mogadishu, like they'll spell them all like totally wrong. It's inevitable. And Ahmed, I had you watch this particular mission. Did you find this authentic to the Bosaso experience? Is this what a vacation in Bosaso is like?
Well, I mean, one thing, this is my main pet peeve when I look at movies, that they don't portray Somalis accurately. So they use a generic Africans, and often it's West Africans, and Somalis and West Africans. So Nigerians, for example, they look very different. So that's funny, and lazy too. I also think that the port looks way too advanced to be Bosaso for that time.
Oh yeah.
Right? It wasn't that developed at the time. And I might be wrong, but from what I know, now it's a bit different. Now it got a lot of investments, but so that I don't really understand. I think also that the buildings, I think they took like a generic Middle Eastern town and then transported that to Bosaso. That's so far like what I had. Like my initial
What about
reaction
berets?
to
Does
it.
everyone wear berets?
Sorry? The
Does everyone wear
berets? Yeah, they
berets?
don't. They don't wear berets. No, no. That's like the generic African warlord thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny that you say. It's funny that you say that in terms of like the difference between West Africans and Somalis, because the Sierra Leonean, the Sierra Leonean, right? Those militia guys, they looked a lot like the Brazilians from Modern Warfare 2, to the point where I think they might have just reused some of them. Like they took out the Brazilians that weren't wearing the soccer shirts, and they kept the ones in like fatigues, and they were like, "Congratulations, you're now the Sierra Leone militia." Like I'm like 90% sure that's what happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did the same thing, because like half this game takes place in like like Western European towns, right? And there's a ton of detail in that. And then for Sierra Leone and Somalia, they're like, this is some buildings, right? There's some Africans there. Like the level of like interest in what these places are like is dramatically different.
Which, like, I don't understand. I don't understand like why they do that.
I can tell you why they do that.
You know. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess
Because
yeah.
you know what it is? I think at the end of the day, well, they would tell you, we have a certain amount of budget. People will understand. People will want to know how, or will recognize London and Washington, D.C. and New York. But they have no understanding of Sierra Leone or Somalia, right? So you can tell them anything, pretty much. I think most people, young people playing that game, they would think it's realistic, probably. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
their only exposure would be like Hollywood or like Far Cry 2. If you ever played Far Cry 2, that was the one that took place in Africa, quotes unquote. The entire nation of.
Uh,
yeah.
I was gonna say it seems like they perpetuate a lot of like stereotypes in America about Africa, like through their art, through this like piece of electronic art where it's like they have a chance to like maybe do some good, and it's like this game that's like huge like cultural piece, and instead it's like it just caters to this like super, I don't want to say America first kind of like we're great and like all these other countries suck kind of like that whole quote unquote whole country kind of mentality that people have about Africa. But it's like I was just looking on Google pictures of this place and it's so beautiful. It's got like the like colorful architecture. Same with like Mogadishu. I've never been there. I know Ahmed, we've obviously been there, but it seems like it's just like got some beautiful architecture and stuff, and like and they have a chance to use their platform to like kind of maybe kind of show that, but instead they just like show it as just like this place that has no hope.
Yeah,
It's not to get all philosophical.
it's like a backdrop, right?
Pseudo philosophical.
Yeah, it's like a backdrop, right? It's like these are places where we're like it's like a different locale. It's like, oh, we've changed up the scenery where like Western people do stuff. And Uncharted's kind of like that as well, but they're a little bit better because they're sort of talking about, in that game they're talking about like ancient civilizations and stuff like that. So at least you have the like, oh yeah, like there's actually a massive underground city under like Yemen or wherever he is at that point in time. But yeah, no, it's definitely not just a Call of Duty issue, and I would at some point like to do like a whole episode on how Africa is like portrayed in a lot of these games, because I think that's an interesting topic.
I will go as far and say some big cities in Africa, in different countries, look better than some parts of Europe. Like, and people might not like want to hear that, but that's definitely America. I would say that. I'm not. I mean, to be fair with you, if you compare Cape Town with Detroit, for example, right? I think.
Or especially like all the like post-industrial stuff, like especially the outskirts of Detroit, or like Gary, Indiana, or like
Flint.
A lot of the Flint, a lot of the Rust Belt. And going into the South, like the Holler, I think it's really only I feel like it's really only Grand Theft Auto that correctly identifies those sorts of areas as sometimes a war zone. But so going back to this, we're in the lovely massive thriving port of Bosaso under the control of one lone warlord named Warabe. So you attack the compound. You know, you kill all those guys, you get to him, you torture him. You know, he tells you like he never actually worked with Makarov. You know, he worked with a Makarov affiliate in Paris.
I mean, one thing I just wanted to add to Warabe means hyena in Somali.
Does it actually?
Wow. So it's like an insult to be called that, to be fair with you. But there are people that have that nickname. They exist.
Yeah, but they made it sound like it was like his name. You know what I mean? Like Johnson.
Yeah.
Like my name's
no.
Dave Hyena.
That's no way a given name, that one.
Oh, okay. Because usually, especially in these kinds of things, you know, if you have a nickname that's like an animal, like they'll translate it, they'll be like, oh, this is the hyena. They call him the jackal. You know, but I guess a missed
They
opportunity.
give you a little bit of a puzzle. Yeah, I mean, in Somalia, nicknames are very common. Almost everybody has one, right? And some stick, some don't. But it's like the former president of Somalia was called Mohamed Farmajo, or cheese, you know, Italian. Which actually his dad was called that because he loved cheese. You know.
I mean, honestly, in terms of nicknames, like between hyena and like I love cheese, like I'll take the latter every time. You know? But yeah, so you torture this guy by like setting off like you set off a chemical container like next to him, and like tell him you won't give him a gas mask until he tells you everything he knows. Which is I don't know, I forgot to update the war crimes counter, but we're ticking up here. And he's like, oh, I never dealt with like Makarov himself. You know, I dealt with his affiliate in Paris. You know, Price then just like shoots him before like checking if that's like true or not, which I don't know, like war crime number 7 or whatever. And you know, you guys escape by like shooting your way through. Oh yeah, a sandstorm comes. You shoot your way through the sandstorm against like bad guys who like presumably these bad guys have nothing to gain by stopping you from leaving because like you just rolled in and shot their boss. Like what? I'm also gonna like not let these guys leave. You know, I don't really know the typical behavior of like a warlord's personal militias, but you know, seems a little out there. So now you have a lead, right? Makarov's associate is in Paris, and he's the guy who like dealt with the chemical weapons. So Price, unbeknownst to us, Price just knows the deltas that you were playing earlier. Like they just happen to know each other from I don't know, like around the Special Forces water cooler or something. So he just like calls them. And sends this info to them, and apparently the French were already on it. Like in the middle of this like massive Russian invasion, French special forces have been sent to get this like one lone terrorist guy, which like bigger fish to fry, right? But you know they're French, so they've been bogged down. You know, so you have to like fly in. So you fly in, you save the French special forces. You know, you chase like the Makarov associate through the streets of Paris in like another like mind-numbing action sequence that doesn't really mean anything, and then you capture him, right? So now you have to get out of Paris, and this is the next mission. You have to get out of Paris in the middle of this invasion, and like the briefing is like the president of the United States. He's like we got to get Makarov, and I'm like, dude, like we're in World War III right now. Like Makarov's done his thing already. He's not going to start World War III again. But then he's like personally like give these deltas everything they need, which is just an excuse for you to like call in like A-10s throughout the mission and like AC-130s and stuff. Yeah, so you end up trapped on the Pont. This is I looked this up. It's Pont d'Iéna, which is a bridge in Paris, which is right in front of the Eiffel Tower, and you're trapped on that bridge. There's a bunch of Russians there, and the Air Force does so many airstrikes like to support you that they collapse the Eiffel Tower, like and so the Eiffel Tower like collapses like right in front of you, like you know.
Seems like a theme.
Which I mean, personally, I think it's kind of overrated, so I wouldn't really be sad.
Yeah, well, the Eiffel Tower.
You might want to edit that. I don't want like French people to come at me.
When this goes to a global broadcast, we'll be sure.
I guess Americans either, since I've been roasting. I don't know. My wife and I went there over the summer, and I was like, I mean, it's cool, but I was more into like the Louvre or like, you know, the other like, I don't know. I know it's a sidebar thing, but I mean,
to be fair, I would have absolutely hated it if this mission had you go through the Louvre and you like walk by the Mona Lisa and you're like, oh, you know, that would have infuriated me. Like you already in this one, you go through like the Paris catacombs for like 5 seconds. Like, I guess that's what they figure. They figure like the cool things about Paris are like the catacomb and the Eiffel Tower, and there's nothing else in Paris to see. Which, yeah, not quite. They also falsely claim, like, I think this is just a script writing issue, but they claim to be south of the Eiffel Tower when this bridge is in fact to the northeast of it. You know, I'm not saying they should have checked it, but it did take me like 5 seconds to like make sure. But yeah, so I don't know if they went to Paris, but if they did, you know, tut tut. But yeah, so unlike the Eiffel Tower, you are now saved. You know, mission over. You've done it. You've got the lead. The Delta guys, you know, they interrogate him, and he looks pretty beat up. So I guess that's another torture sequence that they didn't show. But basically, they learn from this affiliate that Makarov, the main bad guy, is meeting with all his guys in Prague. So the Deltas tell Captain Price and Yuri and Soap this, so they all sneak into Prague, which is apparently like actively being occupied by Russian forces, but also there's like a massive like civilian uprising happening at the same time. So it's like a pretty messy place to hold your secret bad guy conclave meeting. But regardless, you go there to try and assassinate him. As you might expect from Call of Duty, this goes awry. Because Makarov basically turns into like the Joker from Batman in this movie. Like he's always one step ahead of us. He's like always got a plan. And it's because he knew all along you'd come to get him. And like he talks to you guys over the radio to like antagonize you, and he calls Yuri, the guy you're playing, his old friend, over the radio. And Soap's like, what the hell? But you don't have time to like get into that, so you all run away. Soap gets extremely injured during this, so you guys like make it to a safe place to treat him. Unfortunately for Soap, it is too late. He succumbs to his wounds here, but before he dies, his last words to Price are like, you know, to let him know that like Yuri knows Makarov, and then he like collapses. And so you know, Price is a little miffed about this, you know, watching his best bud die right in front of him, and then getting told that like, you know, maybe this other guy who's been with them through a couple of missions might be like an inside man or something. So he, you know, he's calm about it though. He throws you down the stairs, like a flight of stairs, and then he sticks a Desert Eagle in your face. Gotta get that brand recognition for the Desert Eagle, and basically says like, you know, explain yourself. So as confusing as it's been so far, right? This is where it gets even stupider and adds a ton of plot holes. So just, you know, stay with me. You know, ask any questions if you're curious, right? It turns out that Yuri was in the ultranationalist group with Makarov through like every single major event of the last two games. Like he's like in the sniper mission where you shoot Zakayev in the 90s in Chernobyl. Like they're both there, and they like watch the Zakayev, the bad guy from the first game, get his arm blown off. He's there for the nuke in Call of Duty 4, where he's like horrified that like Makarov apparently detonated the nuke or something. So he's like, wow, like what a fall from grace. Like I thought this guy was like, you know, a run of the mill Russian far right ultranationalist, and now it turns out he's also a mass murderer. So at some point there, Yuri starts like informing on Makarov, like to authorities and stuff like that. And so Makarov finds out about this and shoots Yuri like right before he does the airport shooting. Like he's in the clothes for the airport shooting, and he just shoots Yuri right there, which is like another loose end. Like evidence wise, like if a member of the terrorist group is at the airport that you're trying to pin on another country, that's probably not good for your forensics. But yeah, so Yuri has some issues with Makarov on account of like him murdering a bunch of people and also shooting him in the chest. And Captain Price is like, okay, I totally trust you now, but I'm going to be kind of like an asshole to you for the next couple missions. Like whenever Price talks to you as Yuri, like from this point on, he's just like kind of mean for no reason. Like he still trusts him, and he's still like turning his back to him and stuff like that, but he's just meaner now. Like that's the only character thing that's come out of this. So Price and Yuri, now that whole personal drama is sorted, Price and Yuri call the SAS again, and this time instead of sensitive intel, they just demand a bunch of guns and explosives. They're like, send us guns and explosives because I used to work for the SAS. And they do this because they think Makarov might be at this castle that's near Prague, that apparently the ultranationalists have used for years, but the Czech government was like, you know, what's one like massive armed compound with hundreds of guys? You know, we got them all over. You know, so you sneak in. Makarov's not there, but you find out, this is where you find out that like Makarov has the president, and the president's like not giving up the nuclear codes. He's being a champ about all this. And basically Makarov's like, well, I'm going to find your daughter. And then when I have, a gun to your daughter's head, then you'll give me the nuclear codes. And the president's like, oh no, so that's where they leave things. And the SAS are like, or not SAS, Price and Yuri are like, oh man. So they escape and they tell the Delta about this, right? Delta forces. And they go and they find the daughter because she has her cell phone on and she's just like in a hotel in Berlin. And so they track her phone, they like triangulate it and they just call her like, 00, +44 or whatever. And she picks up the phone on this unsecured line and she just like tells like the Delta forces where she is. Just like, no, like OPSEC, nothing like that. She's like, yeah, I'm in this hotel. I'm in this room. Come get me. All my security's dead and the Russians are after me. So the Deltas, they fight through Berlin and there's a bunch of like action scenes that don't move the plot forward. And at the last second, like they're about to get her, but much like the package, the bad guys like drag her into a helicopter and they escape. So now the bad guys Makarov has both the president of Russia and the daughter. It didn't occur to them, by the way, to go after like the president who's been taken hostage, who has the nuclear codes. They were like, we got to rescue the daughter because then the president, who we don't care about, can't give the codes. But anyways, it turns out the daughter was taken to this like Siberian diamond mine. We're kind of approaching, this leads to the end of the game here. The daughter was taken to the Siberian diamond mine. It's one of those big open air ones where it's sort of like a cone. You know what I mean? Like the hole is widest at the top, and then at the very bottom it's very narrow. And they find out the president might be there as well. So the Deltas and Captain Price and Yuri finally link up, for the first time in the game, and they go to fight through this giant mine. They grab the daughter, and the president's there as well. So they just like grab him as an aside. I guess the daughter's more important because they don't really make a big mention of the president. But there's so many bad guys, and they're trying to escape in a helicopter that the Deltas decide that we're going to stay behind and get the daughter out of here. So you leave them behind in this like collapsing mine to like die, and you just leave. This would be very sad if these characters had like any personality at all besides like gruff. It's really not at all like an emotional scene at all. Even though Captain Price is like pretty upset about it. I was just like, okay, whatever. It's not soap, So as you fly away, it sort of fades to white. This isn't the last mission, but this is sort of the end of the big conflict. As you fly away, it plays a news report that like, now that the president's fine again, he's happy to resume the peace talks, which you've just blown up Hamburg, so I don't know where you're going to negotiate now, but you're running out of places. But, it cuts like a month later, where like a peace deal has somehow been reached, even though it's kind of hard to say like my bad for like 2 invasions and like a chemical weapons attack and like presumably like a death toll in the millions, right? But anyways, we negotiated peace. I guess no harm, no foul. What's a few like chemical attacks between friends? But even though the war is over, like everyone, every world government, including Russia, who had their president kidnapped, just forgets about Makarov. I guess everyone except Captain Price and Yuri, who just like hate Makarov. Everyone else forgets about him. In the final mission, Price and Yuri track him down to like just a hotel in Dubai. Like he's not hiding at all. He's just in a hotel in like one of the biggest cities in the world. So you just mark
Andrew Tate.
Is it Andrew Tate?
Smoke a cigar.
Is he? Yeah, actually, Makarov is one of the co-founders of Hustlers University. Yeah, that was his resounding, like more than World War III, like Hustlers University is really where he took it to the next level in terms of villainy. So in addition to kicking Andrew Tate off of like Facebook and social media, Captain Price and Yuri, they go in to get Makarov. You play as Price here, you don't play as Yuri. You fight your way to the roof where Makarov's trying to escape, and like he's trying to escape off the roof in a helicopter. Like he's cornered himself and he's trying to get out by a helicopter. On the way, Yuri gets impaled through the chest with some rebar, which is pretty gnarly. And he's pretty grievously wounded. It's like right through his like lung, I think. And he's like, no, leave me, go get Makarov. Like we aren't characters anymore. We just exist to kill Makarov now. So go do that. And Price is like, you don't have to tell me twice. So like Price sees Makarov taking off in his helicopter, and this is where it turns into like it's been stupid before, but he like jumps onto the bottom of the helicopter, and like causes it to crash back onto the roof, which is mostly glass. Like it's like you're maybe like 30 feet or maybe 30 meters, right? Like above ground. You just crash back down, and you're like more or less in one piece still. This kills both the pilots, which is very convenient. And so like you and Makarov like both stumble out. And there's like a gun, and so you're both like reaching for it, but Makarov gets there first, and he's like about to shoot you, he's got the gun to your face, and then Yuri shows up, and starts like shooting at Makarov. He like wings him, but Makarov just turns around and shoots him like dead. Like it's not really a dramatic moment. It's just kind of like a side thing, like, oh, Yuri just existed to get like shot in this one scene. But it's okay because Captain Price uses that as an opportunity to like jump him. So he tackles him and knocks the gun away, and then just starts wailing on him, just starts like beating the shit out of him like it's a UFC fight. He then like ties a steel cable around his neck to choke him, and then they're on a glass ceiling. Then he drops both of them through the glass ceiling, snapping his neck and like leaving Makarov like hanged there. And you kind of land on a balcony, and like apparently you're okay because you're like a superhero and you can survive like two consecutive massive falls. And then you since you're Captain Price, you light a celebratory cigar, and you hear sirens approaching, and that's the end of the Modern Warfare trilogy. Like that's how the story ends. Captain Price has nothing left in his life and has murdered the bad guy, and that's sort of where they decided to leave it. What do you guys think of that? Do you think that was a satisfying conclusion? Do you think that was realistic? the hotel in Dubai drop sequence.
Well, I think realism. We passed way past the point of realism now in the last two podcasts already. So I think also you can see that. I don't know if Infinity War made it, or
yeah.
You can see that there is
it was
a drop.
Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer.
All right, yeah, you can see that there is a drop off, obviously, for the interest in the story. As you go through the franchise. So yeah. I mean, I don't think. I think it was short, because by Modern Warfare 3, obviously the emphasis on multiplayer was there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, they by the time. Yeah, but I mean, by the time of Modern Warfare 3, like there's no real like big story moments really. Like if you think about like what's in sort of people's memory, or like they remember the sniper stuff from Call of Duty 4, they remember the nuke from Call of Duty 4. They remember, General Shepard and stuff from Modern Warfare 2 and defending DC. But there's no real like memorable moments from Modern Warfare 3, and that's sort of a trend that continues after this. Like I think the only notable story thing with Call of Duty was the meme about press F to pay respects. I think from like Advanced Warfare a couple years later, and that was just because that was a meme.
Really?
Yeah.
I always wondered
press
about
F to
that.
pay respects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess the airport scene too from
yeah.
remember No Russian.
Oh yeah, the airport scene and. Yeah, I remember No Russian, and there was the in Black Ops, which we didn't cover, but maybe we'll cover Black Ops as its own sort of thing later. But they have like the numbers, Mason. What do they mean? And that was sort of a moment that was sort of big. But Modern Warfare 3 and beyond, like it's really no longer about like the story or the plot or anything like that. It really is just a vehicle to get you to play the multiplayer, which is fair. I mean, the multiplayer is tons of fun, and that's where you get a lot of replayability. But it is a shame, and it's sort of reflected in what you see here. I guess the other observation I had was that like all of the set pieces in Call of Duty 4, like by this point they just feel quaint. You know what I mean? Like in Call of Duty 4, there's a sequence where like a tank, like an Abrams tank, drives over like a car, and it like pancakes the car, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then like by Modern Warfare 3, you're like, oh, what? That's it? Like you should be driving over every car. Like there's a sequence in this game where you're in an Abrams, and you're on those, those like multi-story car parking lots where they have like the concrete ramps that go up, right? So you're on one of the concrete ramps, and like literally the tank collapses the concrete ramp, and then you like pancake your way down through the collapsing thing like 4 or 5 stories, and that's just like something that happens in the middle of the mission, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a normal thing. It's just like that's how high our tolerance has gotten to like insane stuff happening in the franchise, that by like Modern Warfare 3 they have to make it like science fiction essentially,
which is essentially what they also transition into after that, right? Because that's kind of when they started going into like Infinite Warfare or Advanced Warfare.
Yeah. Call of Duty Ghosts is like near future, and then like Advanced Warfare is like space and Kevin Spacey and all that stuff. And they and like up until 2019, it was sort of in that direction of like science fiction-y stuff, like not really that emphasis on plot. And it was that like 2019 Modern Warfare reboot where, I don't know, I think our interests like as viewers and as audiences were more into like grit and stuff, like if you look at like Batman, right, like the new Batman's like really gritty, or if you look at like, I don't know, action movies, people are more into like John Wick and stuff than like Bad Boys. So there was an interest in like, grit and ugliness and sort of real, or like the aesthetic of realism. And I think that like I think that like the next, if we get into the new Modern Warfare, is like it's going to be a lot more of like, it's going to be a lot less like science fiction-y, but it's going to be a lot more like like gruesome almost, more about like the ethics and of violence and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, seems like the more callous society gets,
sneaking around Amsterdam.
God, I mean, I heard there's a controversial mission in the new one, but I haven't played enough of the campaign to have experienced it. But I don't.
Yeah, I think they literally. I mean, I haven't played it either, but my understanding is that it's almost like a blow by blow of like killing Soleimani. The Iranian general that was killed in Iraq a couple years back, which is like fairly tasteless. I mean, like, I'm not like shedding tears for Soleimani or anything, but it is like that is like a real event that happened.
Jeez.
There is also, going back to Amsterdam. This is only semi related, but there is a 1980s slasher movie called Amsterdam.
Oh.
And I think it's on Amazon Prime. I think for the Prime Video.
I know it.
It's so good.
I think it's made by. He's very famous science fiction.
Dick Moss.
Dick Moss, yeah. Dick Moss is a big time director.
And he decided to make a slasher movie in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how he like kind of like started off his career. But it's like a cult classic in the Netherlands.
Wow.
Yeah, like the guy's like, he's got like a leather jacket and he smokes. He's like the coolest guy in the Netherlands.
If that's the standard, holy hell.
I mean, when I landed in the Netherlands, I was the coolest guy in the Netherlands, but then I took off again, so it was sort of like it's sort of like a. I felt cool. You feel cool in Schiphol in their airport, because they got like a library in there. They got like a. They got like a little art gallery, especially in the international terminal. I don't know what the domestic terminals are like, but yeah, you feel very like cosmopolitan.
Jeez.
In those.
So I just had to like look it up quickly, but Dick Maas, the main thing he's famous for, it's not outside of the Netherlands, it's inside. He created a sitcom and a movie series on this family, and if there's Dutch people listening, they will know this. At least if you're from my generation, a little bit younger. But it was a family called Flodder, and it was like basically the concept of the Beverly Hillbillies, right? That's kind of like the concept. They move a family from like the Dutch like social housing, into like a very fancy neighborhood, and hilarity ensues.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a comedy, but it's a comedy series, but it's really funny. That's what he's mainly known for. But Amsterdam is just like It's like a cult classic. You know, it's not that big, but
It's actually the prequel story to Captain Price. That's why he was wandering around there. Surely, I mean, what was he doing there, Michael? Was it like above board? Like, couldn't he have talked to like the government of the Netherlands and be like, hey?
I I don't know. I got to like the intro, like the beginning of the scene, and I was like, all right, I gotta like, I'm gonna do something else. I'm not usually a Call of Duty campaign guy. It was just mostly like, I might give it a shot, but I think it was just starting the scene, and he was I want to say he was in some sort of a watercraft, but I could be completely making that up. He was somewhere like perched under a tunnel or something. Yeah, I don't remember the details, but
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember from the first reboot, so the 2019 one. Like, there's some pretty wild moments. Like, there's stuff like they embed like a CIA guy with like the not Kurds. Like, they decided to chicken out and be like, no, they're not the Kurds. They're just a different like armed ethnic minority that crosses several borders that is like, you know, interested in independence. And yeah, man, like he's like a CIA officer, and he's got like a big fat American flag. He's supposed to be undercover. He's got like a giant American flag like on his plate carrier and stuff. And he's like the whitest dude in the entire world. Like, he probably like reflects light from like a mile off. And you're like, come on, guys. Like, this is your realistic take.
no, yeah. I think that sums it up pretty much. I think it was a bit, you know, the game was a bit deflating. I think from what I remember, I've watched like walkthroughs and I haven't played it really. But as I said in the beginning, I think the storyline became weaker and weaker as we went, and more money went to multiplayer and less to the campaign mode. But I think it was interesting nonetheless to talk about it and contextualize it and give our opinions on it. So Marcel, thank you so much for walking us through again. I know you've done a lot of research on it, and Michael, thank you for.
Yeah, I played so many video games.
It was a burden, you know.
Struggling.
Thank you, Michael. Also.
Yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
And for everybody listening, I hope it was interesting and you guys enjoyed us tearing this game apart a little bit. And at the end of the day, you know, we understand it's entertainment, but it's good to give our viewpoint on it. And I don't think that's not really been done before. So thank you for joining us, guys.
Or it'll just be lessons.
There you go. Thank you, guys, and speak to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.